LGT is actually the largest 100% privately owned wealth and asset management bank in the world. So the Princely Family of Liechtenstein is the sole owner of that bank. And that's important because of many reasons, but two are that due to the family ownership, they can really make very efficient decisions, and they can also take a much longer term view on the strategy of the activities than many other competitors that are have a more broader shareholder structure than LGT. And I think with those two things in mind, the long-term perspective and the values around sustainability, inclusiveness, and environmental protection, they founded 2007 LGT Venture Philanthropy with the intention to deploy philanthropic capital of the Princely family to drive scalable solutions to address environmental and social issues in primarily developing countries. With that mission, we started building up teams in South America, in Africa, in India, Southeast Asia, and in China. And I think the core DNA from the beginning was to work with entrepreneurs that have scalable solutions, that are hungry for growth, that have demonstrated and bring the track record of being successful in building up and out companies, and then support these entrepreneurs in their growth with very flexible funding. So we try to really listen to what the entrepreneur needs and not what we think they need. So that's, I think, a really important part of our support. But then also from the very beginning, we were aware of the fact that money can solve some issues, but the lack or the constant need for human capital, for talent, for people that can help the organization to grow is imminent. So that was the birth the ideas behind launching the fellowship program to be complementary to the financial capital that we provide to LGT's portfolio organization to help them grow as much as possible. In 2016, a separate brand was launched, which is called LGT Lightstone. So now we have basically two complementary approaches towards driving that overall mission of the Princely family, which is LGT Venture Philanthropy Foundation. It does grants into nonprofit organizations and comes more from a solution angle. And then we have LGT Lightstone, which is the impact investing private equity arm of LGT. What is this fellowship program all about? It tries to connect professionals, often coming from the private sector, as the two examples that with Som and Smiti today on the panel will tell you. So often professionals coming from the private sector with very rigid, solid professional skill sets in marketing, finance, operations, project management, so classical organizational skill set, and we connect them with our portfolio organizations that are constantly in need of additional talent that help them on their growth trajectory of their organizations. What are the typical characteristics of a fellow? I mentioned the solid business skills, professional skill sets. On average, people have around 7 years of work experience when they join the program after they finished university. They have a higher educational degree. And obviously the right mindset with regards to applying their professional skills and providing the time that they spend on their job to do something that has great value to society.
Varthana is a finance company here in India that provides loans to schools primarily, and now also to students for higher education. But the core of the business is loans to schools. And in addition to loans, we provide forms of support, different solutions that address both the academic and the business aspects of running a school. I guess now we would have taken 5 fellows over the course of our journey. And if you look at the early days, the 2 first fellows both came from the finance world. investment banking world. And they both came in to the finance function early on because we, again, didn't have a mature finance function that was developed. In fact, both of them came on before we even had a CFO. And they provided valuable support as we were raising debt and equity in some of the early stages. And as a founder, doing both that and then trying to concentrate on operations and many other things, it was wonderful to have them come on board. As Varthana scaled and we were able to develop, a mature finance function, then what we've sourced the last three fellows to work on has been more in the solutions department, which has almost been like a startup inside an older startup. And so there's a lot more kind of experimentation and exploration, and there's not as much of a mature developed team that's there. And so that's a great area for us to fit in fellows.
The LGT Impact Fellowship was sort of like a springboard or a platform for me to, take that leap from a conventional corporate career to an impactful role in the development sector. And as you and Steve rightly mentioned, the platform was quite important for someone like me who did not have a prior development sector experience. My formative years in the corporate sector gave me like those core hard skills in financials, in services industry, as well as in consulting. I think what was missing was the ability to see a tangible impact of my work, and while I did fulfill some of that through working on various projects at Goldman Sachs, for example, leading the funding round in the Goldman Sachs India Impact Fund, I definitely wanted to move beyond the projects and the one-off volunteering opportunities and have like a more full-time role in the sector and bring on my skill sets and my experience. When I set out to do the fellowship, what I was looking for is, again, to see a tangible impact of my work, and also to play maybe a minuscule role in the different development challenges that is around us, especially in India. The conversations that I had with the leadership team at Varthana, Steve and the other co-founder Brijesh, I think that's what inspired me and actually made me more and more confident that given their vision of transforming education and supporting access to education through providing the resources to private schools. So that their visionary thought was definitely like a driving factor for me to be like, yes, I definitely a place where I can see myself working here, learning here, not just about the sector, like the development sector, the education sector in specific, but also learning about the workings of a social enterprise.
Varthana works in two broad buckets to support affordable private schools in the country. One is by providing growth capital, and the other is beyond loans. So Steve asked me to work on the beyond loans aspect, and which was to help schools, the APS segment, with management consulting solutions, which could be market research based, which could be marketing related, which could be financial consulting related. So I think the idea for that team, which Smiti also was a part of, and Andy earlier, who was also an LGT fellow, was to sort of like marry this growth capital that Varthana was providing with providing expertise to the schools of the APS segment on how to use that capital. Where I fit in personally was to like manage the end-to-end value chain of what these products were. So one was to understand, work closely with these school leaders to try and get a sense of what were the challenges that they were facing, and then use that feedback loop to understand what sort of products would cater to those challenges and how could we come in and, as Varthana, and help these schools. So I think my role personally was to look at the entire value chain, to look at market research, to then incorporate that market research through feedback and create products which could benefit these schools, and then eventually handhold these schools within the APS segment throughout the product duration and help them with marketing, help them with market research. So I think it's a pretty broad role, and fellows typically, like in my case personally, I think we work closely with Steve in multiple projects while also being close to schools.
The strength of the ecosystem has just been incredible. I think this thing is accelerating every year. The degree to which there are all flavors of angel investors and incubators and different types of support groups, many different flavors of capital, and some of them are a growing number of impact branded or explicitly impact focused things. But it's very noticeable that you would see, of course, mainstream investors and lenders that have nothing to do with impact supporting, supposedly impact focused companies.
In Goldman Sachs, when we would look at an investment, it would be primarily from a risk and return lens. And now that lens has shifted to a risk return and an impact lens. And the impact part is quite important, especially in my role at LGT VP, given, like as you alluded to, Tom, earlier, that we as an organization, as a foundation, invest in scalable models which are doing impactful work on the ground and may not necessarily be generating market returns. And hence, being able to analyze that level of the impact that a particular organization or a model is creating and being able to look beyond risk and returns is something that I have learned and something that I'm working with on a day-to-day basis. The way I work and my personal role has also evolved from somebody who basically is a financial advisor advising in investors in their investment strategy, to someone who has now donned the hat of an investor and has now skin in the game and is working very closely with organizations to identify the right kind of organizations that LGTVP should invest in, to develop the metrics that we evaluate them on, and to identify like the value add that we can create with them as an investor.
It's for everyone who's willing to make that shift. However, I think it's better suited for people who are looking to make a fundamental difference in how we view society today, who are deeply passionate about a cause and are looking to build businesses or solutions that can tackle those causes again in a sustainable and a scalable manner. So if you're looking to understand that, and if you already have some experience in various fields but you're willing to learn and apply those fundamental business concepts towards tackling a social cause, I think that's when you're a good fit. If you're also making that shift from a corporate setup, say, to like a social enterprise or a non-profit oriented role, where I think one of the key things that we spoke about earlier as well is because you're so process driven and you work in a structured manner, when you come in here, you have to have that flexibility and adaptability and be open to ambiguity. So if you can operate in ambiguity, I think above everything else, that's one key factor which will make you a good fit for the fellowship.